Hello everyone. Am I audible? Please confirm. Please confirm if I'm audible. Students attending the test online on YouTube and Zoom, please confirm. Okay. Screen. So we will be starting with the test discussion, and today with me we have Shoaib sir. Shoaib sir is an IRS officer from 23 batch. So couple of questions I'll be discussing and couple of questions Shoaib sir will be discussing, and he will explain what are the important components or we need to take care when we are writing the answers. I hope all of you have tried to attempt the test. The questions which we have shared, it's from the previous year's question. If you are going through the previous year's questions on a daily basis, I'm sure you will be comfortable. So in this test, in this discussion, we are going to brainstorm the questions. So I would request all of you not only to focus on the content, because content आप बाद में जाके भी पढ़ सकते हो. Focus on the ideas which we are going to discuss. Be it introduction, be it structure, the demand of the question, the idea of conclusion, right? So the important is the idea, because when we write the answer, the very common problem which I have seen, especially even with the veterans, is the lack of logical ideas they are able to generate or they are able to think when they are writing the answer. They are just dumping whatever the content, the data they have in their notes. So in this session, we are going to discuss the ideas, right? So when you will be able to understand what is the idea, how to think logically, automatically you will see how you are going to structure your answer, basically, right? So Shoaib sir will also be contributing in between if there will be any improvement or any scope of various dimension which we can add as a value addition. So we will see what are the various provisions. So the first question was, Dr. Ambedkar described constitutional morality as not a natural sentiment, but one to be established and diffused. Critically examine this statement in the context of India's democratic culture. Now, as soon as you read the question, always remember one thing. The very first thing you need to understand is why this question is asked. So can anyone tell me why this question is asked? What is the logic behind it? Because if you are not able to understand why this question is asked, it will be very difficult to start with a good introduction. So what is the idea of, yes?
Because constitutional morality is not institutionalized in an article or two. It is something that is being brought up through judgment. And recently, many cases are there that are related to this morality problem.
Okay, good point. Any other? Is this a new concept, constitutional morality? Then? Yes. So Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, he used to emphasize on the constitutional morality in Constitutional Assembly debate itself, right? Why he was emphasizing more on constitutional morality? Why? Because the statement says it's not a natural sentiment, but it needs to be developed, right? So when the constitution was framed, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was quite sure that the constitutional morality, right? What is the constitutional morality? It is the adherence to the principle of justice, equality, liberty, right? But mere the constitution or the constitutional words will not ensure it in the absence of constitutional morality. So Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar used to emphasize on this particular constitutional morality for egalitarian society, right? So the question says, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar described constitutional morality as not a natural sentiment, right? But one to be established and diffused. It has to be developed. It has to be established or diffused, right? So as far as the introduction is concerned, what are we going to do? Are we going to define the constitutional morality, or are we going to write the significance of constitutional morality? Because I'm sure as far as the demand of the question is concerned, many students will be confused what should be the structure of the answer, right? So I'll come to the structure part later on. I'll give you the idea how to think about as far as the various dimensions is concerned, right? But first, let's look at the idea of introduction. So what is the idea of introduction? What we are going to define here? Yes? Need of constitutional morality. How you are going to highlight the need? Yes, so you can say we can link it with the ideals of or ideals in the preamble. That is one way. We can start with the constitutional morality itself, the defining term, right? Because this question is based on the concept, and along with the concept, the question also wants you to understand the significance of constitutional morality, right? So there are three ways we can define the or we can write the introduction. One is the conceptual definition introduction. For example, the constitutional morality refers to the adherence to the constitutional values, institutions, and procedures above personal, social, and political impulses. Second one is the quote we can use. Ambedkar ji ka jo quote hai jiske upar question hai. And the third is the contemporary hook intro. So this contemporary link is the best possible way we can start with the introduction. That is recent Supreme Court ruling in case like Navtej Singh and Sabrimala reviewed Ambedkar's idea of constitutional morality, where constitutional principle prevail over the popular or cultural morality, right? So in various judgment, in especially in Sabrimala case, Navtej Singh Johar case, the constitutional morality was upheld. So we can highlight the significance, because this question is more about the significance of constitutional morality. If we are going to write the significance based introduction, it is more relevant as far as the demand of the question is concerned. Otherwise, you can also define it, or if you know, or if you can recall any quote, you can use that also, right? Now, as far as the structure of this answer is concerned, how many subheading you guys have in your answer? Yes, how many subheading? 3 subheading. What are those? Why constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment? That is the first. What else? Methods to diffuse. Okay. Okay, so antithesis you have talked about that the constitutional morality is a natural sentiment, or we have seen it is evolving in the nature rather, right? Okay. So any other idea? Can we say it has to be like how it should be developed rather? Question says critically examine, right? So let's understand as far as the structure of the answer is concerned. So when you know why the question is asked, now it is my request from all of you to focus on these 3 keywords, right? Whenever you see the question, right? Whenever you see the question, always remember one thing, focus on the statement of the question. Second part, focus on the tailword in the question. And third is the keyword in the question. And always try to find the scope. Scope means, is there any scope to divide the statement of the question? Is there any scope to divide the tailword of the question? Or is there any scope to divide the keyword in the question? When we divide the statement, or when we find the scope in the tailword or statement, we get the broad structure in our answer, right? Based on these 2 words, we get the broad structure. Broad structure means how many subheadings you are going to use in your answer, right? How many subheading you are going to use in your answer, that is you will get when you will understand the scope of a statement and the tailword. We will see that. What is the importance of keyword? Based on the keyword, we get to know how we are going to write, or how we are going to generates the points within the subheading. And trust me, my friend, if you are going to identify the keyword in the question, you can solve almost every possible question. Because this constitutional morality topic, it is not only like important as far as the concept is concerned, but as far as the significance is concerned, this constitutional morality topic is very, very important. So UPSC can link the constitutional morality with any body, be it judiciary, be it any constitutional body, be it Election Commission of India, right? So in that case, you should know how to identify the keywords and break it down to generate the structure and the diversified points. So I hope this is clear. So as far as question says critically examine, this is the tail word, critically examine. What does it mean, critically examine? What we are going to analyze in this question? Yes, where we are going to emphasize more in this answer? Negative part. What do you mean by negative part? So that is how it should be diffused. That is the like significance you are talking about, right? Or the various methods, right? Okay. So in this part, as far as the critically examine is concerned, right? Question says critically examine this statement in the context of Indian democratic culture. Critically examine means what? See, first of all, you need to understand what exactly does the critically means. Critically means का मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि हमको negative point ही ज़्यादा लिखने होते हैं. Critically means you have to think deeper, be it positive or be it negative. Critically means you have to think critically, चाहे वो pros हैं चाहे cons हो, right? So now, if you understand why this question is asked, the reason why this question is asked, because the constitutional morality needs to be evolved. It is not, or though it is evolving through various judgment, through societies, even the parliament, right? They are all contributing in the social morality, constitutional morality, but it needs to be further evolved, right? So that is what you need to basically highlight. Now, as far as the first demand of the question is concerned, right? It is not a natural sentiment. It is not a natural sentiment. Now just ask yourself logically why we can say it was not a natural sentiment. Because when the Ambedkar has said that the constitutional morality is not, it has to be evolved, right? It is not a natural sentiment. Why do you think it is not a natural sentiment? Now put the logic lagao, try to identify the broad aspects why it was not a natural sentiment. Yes. But when the constitution was framed, even still the constitutional morality holds the importance, but right, still we say it was not a natural sentiment. Why? different level पे सोचो. Why we can say at social level, at political level, right, at governance level, right, at individual level. What was the situation which was prevailing when the constitution was framed? Don't you think why Ambedkar wanted to, or why he always emphasized on the constitutional morality? The reason is because our society, it was divided. It was divided based on the caste, religion, right? Even as far as the political aspect is concerned, we all know that there was no, or it was more of centralized government, right? Single party rule, right? As far as the governance is concerned, right? As far as the individuals are concerned. So you have to think from the education point of view. People were not literate that point of time. Government, it was more of centralized, form of government, right? There was single party dominance, right? So that is how you have to think why Ambedkar wanted it to be evolved. Is this clear, everyone? Right? So you need to understand why it was not a natural sentiment. Think from the different point of view. Be it institution also. Even there was no institutions, right? For transparency, accountability and all. Everything got evolved. So for the effective functioning of the parliament, institution, society, culture, Ambedkar wanted the constitutional morality to be evolved. So in this context, we can think and we can address the very first part of the question, that is, why not a natural sentiment? So we had a colonial legacy. There were draconian laws like sedition law and all, right? Then caste community loyalties, institutional loyalties were there. Then patronage politics were there, freebies culture. Then personality cult, leaders, right? Then weak civic culture, citizens more rights focused, less duty conscious. Then populism and majoritarianism, short-term constitutional propriety. So these are the broad angle at institutional level, at social level, at political level. You can think why it needs to be developed, right? Now, second part of the question is basically critically examine this statement in the context of Indian democratic culture. Now, focus on this part, democratic culture. So basically, question is trying to say it needs to be established and diffused for what? To protect the democratic culture. Now you should know two things, right? How it should be established and diffused, and how it protects the democratic culture. Can we focus on these two keywords? Now just ask yourself, is this the responsibility of judiciary only to uphold the constitutional morality? Don't you think it's the responsibility of the institution also, other institutions also? For example, Election Commission of India, CIC, right? Even the parliament. What about the individual? What about the society? Can we think? So I have, because see, this is not a very unique question. This question has been asked by the UPSC couple of times, and I have seen most of the students, they have focused only on the judiciary. कि judiciary के case लिखे जा रहे हैं हम लोग. We are not basically expanding our dimensions. So think from the society point of view also. Think from the individual point of view also. Think from the institution point of view also, right? So how it should be established and diffused, we can link it with various aspects. For example, like institutions, right? Government, individuals, society, because they are all stakeholders as far as the constitutional morality is concerned, right? So this is how we have to think. Now, once it will be established, once it will be diffused, how they are going to uphold the democratic culture. Now, can we divide the democratic culture itself? Right? How? Democratic principles, how we can link? What are the principles of democratic culture or democratic principles or democratic ideals? We can talk about justice, we can talk about equality, we can talk about liberty, we can talk about rule of law, we can talk about separation of power, right? All these are the democratic ideals or the values. So if the constitutional morality will be upheld, then it will definitely going to ensure the democratic culture. So now this democratic culture, whenever you see the word democratic culture or democratic ideals or democratic values, now you know how to think. If you know like 6-7 component of democratic ideals, culture, values, you can link or you can address any question, right? So this is the keyword. This is the benefit of identifying the keyword. There is one more question in I think fourth or fifth question is there, where judicial activism is linked with the democratic ideals. proactive role of judicial activism, right? So even that question can be addressed using the same approach. If you know how to basically break down the democratic ideals, right? So identification of keyword is extremely important, my friend. Otherwise, you will not be able to diversify your points. Your answer will become monotonous, right? I hope this is clear. For example, why they must be established and diffused strong institution, right? Through election commission, CAG ho gaya, judiciary upholding their spirit, then political leadership, judicial, educational system. Because if the people will not be educated, individuals will not be educated, right? So obviously they will not understand the concept of constitutional morality itself, right? Similarly, civil society and media, we can also talk about the role of media, NGOs, civil society. They are also responsible for upholding the constitutional morality, right? Then constitutional conventions, example, impartial speaker, independent governors. Then public reasoning and debate, tolerance for dissent. So these are all various aspects which we can use, and why it is relevant, as you can see. These are the component of democracy only, right? Pluralism, rule of law, checks and balance, stable democracy, social justice, resilience against authoritarianism, deepening democracy. So I'm sure in your answer, how many of you have understood this part? In many answers, I have seen this cause and effect relationship is missing. Sometime either you are writing the effects or sometime you are writing the only causes. Always remember one thing, in most of the question in UPSC, you will find this cause and effect relationship has to be established. या तो हम सीधे cause लिख देते हैं, especially in the suggestions, right? In suggestions, or when we talk about the reforms measures, we only talk about the effects, or either we only talk about the reforms, but we never link it. And even when the question is, for example, analyze something, examine something, right? We are not highlighting this relationship, cause and effect relationship. So please remember this. This is very important, right? I hope this is clear. Now, challenges. What are the challenges or the criticism? Because question says critically examine, right? So there are various challenges. Again, for the challenges, we can use the same template at institutional level, at judicial level, at social level, at individual level, right? Because we all know that there are various questions or debate revolving around the judicial accountability, right? We all know that there are issues of parliament, the functioning of the parliamentary system, right? As far as the productivity is concerned, right? We all know that there are debate on the independent functioning of Election Commission of India, CAG, right? So these are some challenges basically. So at various level, at cultural level, political level, at society level, right? The caste hierarchies still exist in the Indian society. So these are some barriers or the challenges which we can identify. Now, the next question is, many students ask me, sir, since we are writing the challenges or criticism, is it always necessary to write the suggestions or way forward? Not always necessarily. Not always necessarily. It depends. Whether see, it's a 10 marker question, you already have given the fair idea about the conceptual clarity as far as the constitutional morality is concerned. You have already talked about the significance. However, some challenges or criticisms are there, right? इसके बाद आपको जरूरी नहीं है कि आप suggestions लिखो. Otherwise, if you're going to start with the suggestions, then there will be a hell lot of points, because at every level you have to think about it. So instead of that, what you can do, you can highlight the reforms or suggestions in the concluding remark itself sometime. ठीक है, आप futuristic conclusion लिखने की practice कर लो, especially as far as the 10 marker question is concerned, right? But if the question is problem based, remember this, if the tone of the question is problem or issue based, then you must give the measures or suggestions, right? For example, the question is on the independent functioning of Election Commission of India, independent functioning of the CAG. In those cases, definitely you have to write few points under the reforms. But since this is a very broad concept, constitutional morality, right? In this answer, it is not always necessary to give the way forward. However, your tone of your conclusion can be basically futuristic, right? I hope this is clear. For example, the balanced conclusion, Ambedkar's warning remains true. Constitution alone cannot guarantee democracy. It is the people and leaders who must nurture constitutional morality for institutions to thrive. Or forward-looking conclusion, for India's democratic future, constitutional morality must evolve from being externally enforced to being internally lived, right? Then aspirational conclusion, only when constitutional morality becomes social morality, when constitutional morality becomes social morality, will India achieve Ambedkar's vision of a democracy that is not just institutional in form, but constitutional in spirit. So, as far as the conclusion is concerned, it is my request from all of you, whenever you are going through the previous year's question, please prepare some templates for the conclusion, not for the introduction, because the introduction, tone of the introduction it can be changed, right? And it is always recommended that you should write the contextual introduction. Contextual means why this topic is currently in the news, why this topic is currently in the debate. So if you are preparing for 2026 or some students are preparing for 2027, the context will change. But idea you should know, the idea will remain same, right? I hope this is clear. Any doubt? Anyone? Online students? YouTube का icon, YouTube screen. Any doubt? Sure, YouTube check. Shall we move to the next question?
We have given option of giving info of Baba Sahib's statement from where the question has been taken. So it is
repetition you are saying. See, you don't have to just copy and paste, you have to highlight the significance of that statement. So that is what I have, I think, written the statement. This highlights the gap between written law and lived democratic culture. Right? So this statement, I'm not saying just write down this statement, you have to highlight this part. This highlights the gap between written law and lived democratic culture. Right? So this is important. So basically, as far as the introduction is concerned, you just need to identify the tone of the question, right? And like I always say, the tone of the question can be either significance based, issue based, or the concept based, right? So if most of the historical question, right, it is based on the significance. Even in science and technology, you will find, for example, discuss the significance of blockchain technology in agriculture sector. This is a significance based tone. So in that kind of question, you have to make sure your introduction is, the tone of the introduction is significance based. Issue based question, more of like 70 to 80% of the question in UPSC paper are issue based. So it is always recommended to highlight the issue itself in the introduction, right? And the third is concept based. For example, when the question asks, what do you understand by the constitutional morality? What do you understand by the constitution as a living document? Explain the concept of constitution as a living document. In that case, you can basically start with the definition. In that case, you can start with the definition. This is a common mistake many students are committing when they are framing the introduction, right? So introduction should be aligned with the tone of the question. Otherwise, आप कुछ भी लिख के आ जाओगे, right? I have seen in GS paper 3, right, where sometime UPSC asks the question related to the agriculture, right? Or from agriculture topic, UPSC asks the question linking with the climate change. हम लोग क्या लिख के आ जाते हैं? Contribution of GDP of agriculture in the introduction. Wait, what? How does it make any sense? Right? If the question says discuss the impact of climate change on the agriculture, आप उसका contribution लिख के आ रहे हो. You are highlighting the significance. Question says, question wants you to discuss the negative impact of climate change on the agriculture, right? तो issue लिखो. आप कहीं ना कहीं productivity की बात कर सकते हो. How the productivity of agriculture sector is declining, right? So it is very important to understand, right? Okay, Rishi, so you say can globalization, exposure to liberal ideas, urbanization, anonymity, etc. can be quoted, which has led to reduction in discrimination, at least in urban areas. In what context are you talking about, Rishi? I'll pick up the question later on. Okay, so I hope you got the idea. Now, the second question. I think this question was easy, quite easy, right? Because in this question, first I will see what you have written in the introduction, since you have got the idea. The crucial aspect of development process has been the inadequate attention paid to the human resource development in India. Suggest measures that can address this inadequacy. Why this question is asked? Why this question is asked? Is this question issue based or significance based? This question is issue based. What is the issue? Huh? Because inadequate attention paid to human resource development in India. So this question is issue based, right? So whenever you are writing either issue, significance, or definition, remember this part. Substantiate. Always substantiate with some data. कुछ data डालो इसमें, या use some facts, examples, but you must substantiate the introduction. Just highlighting the issue is not enough. You need to substantiate it. You need to give it, you need to give a proof, right? Why are we talking about the human development, right? So what could be the possible data we can quote in the introduction? HDI rank, Human Development Index. Very good, right? That is the best possible way to introduce the question, right? For example, India has demographic dividend 65% below 35 years, but HDI rank, I think 130 or 134, reflects HRD gaps, right? Definitional based. Most of, I think many students will prefer to write the definition, but I have already explained what is the limitation of definition based introduction. The question is not about the Human Development Index, but it is about the issue based question, issues with the human development. So I will not use this introduction, though I have given written it here, but just wanted to explain that it is not, this is not the right way to introduce, right? Isko hata do aap. If you can recall quotes, if you have it in your notes, definitely you can use it. But remember one thing, just the quotes cannot be the introduction, especially in GS paper 1, 2, 3. 4 may you can use it, but in GS paper 1, 2, and 3, quote alone cannot be the introduction. I have seen in many answers, students usually just put the quote. Okay? So always make sure, even if you are using the quote, you have to highlight the issue through some data, some facts, right? I hope this is clear. Now, as far as the demand of the question is concerned, let's put the idea. What is the keyword we can use to generate the point? Is there any keyword we can highlight? What? Measures? No. Measures तो आएगा ही, but see, I want you to think the framework. Problem जानते हो कहां पे हो रही है answers में? See, first you need to understand what is answer writing. Answer writing is nothing but it's a organization, organizing your thoughts and writing it down on a piece of paper, right? So the problem is you are not focusing on organizing the thought itself. भैया आप thoughts to develop करो. Is there any logic? Logically, can you think? Because usually, human resource development. Okay. Yes. Focus on this word. Human resource development. Right? This can be the keyword. So, logically, now you have to think what are the human resource development? What are the key aspects of human resource development? What are the key aspects? Capacity building तो कहीं पे भी लग जाएगा. हाँ? Health, education, what else? Skill. What else? Nutrition. Right? So, yes. So, try to focus on human resource development. Now, when I know the component of human resource development, be it any question, UPSC को कोई भी question पूछने दो, I know now how to break it down. Now, you have to recall the data. Where India lack, as far as the education is concerned, as far as the health is concerned, as far as the skill is concerned, as far as the nutritional security is concerned, right? This is where your one-pager note will help you. But for framework, you have to focus on the brainstorming. Always remember this. You have to identify the keywords. So next time, whenever you see these kind of questions, you should be able to think about it logically rather than recalling the point from your notes, one-pager notes and all. Right? So introduction ka idea we have seen. Now, as far as the measures are concerned, measures we can think in two ways, right? Suggest measures that can address this inadequacy, right? Either apply the sectors based approach. Sector means the sectors which we have picked up for the human resource development. For example, like education, health, skill, like what can you do, right? What can you suggest for each and every sector? On the other hand, other way to think about the measures. What are the other ways? Stakeholders. Yes. Stakeholders we can apply. Stakeholders approach. Right? We can think in the terms of like institutional reforms, social reforms, political reforms, digital reforms, infrastructural reforms. Right? We need digital infrastructure, then connectivity infrastructure, health infrastructure, social infrastructure. It can be anything. Right? Institutional level reforms. Right? So this is another way you can think of. So either way you can use to think about the measures. So when you are brainstorming the previous year's questions, please make sure you should not think about the content. It is my request from all of you, do not think about the content कि मेरे पास content है कि नहीं. पहले framework होना चाहिए आपके answers के लिए. Otherwise, your answer will become monotonous. That is for sure. Right? I hope this is clear. For example, like aspects of inadequacy and measures: education, health, skill, employment, gender and social inclusion, governance and investment, and innovation and higher education. So these are some broader aspects of human development, human resource development. But what is more important is you need to provide some data. This is the value addition. This is the value addition. Right? Now, as far as the measures are concerned, So this is one template I have shown. Now sector wise. Now I'll tell you what are the issues with, what are the common mistakes many students commit when they write the measures or suggestions, right? This part is very important to understand. For example, you are writing, government should focus on digital infrastructure. Government should focus on health infrastructure, right? Government should focus on skill. Government should focus on education. Government should focus on nutrition. This is how we write the suggestion. Now, but the problem is, these are nothing but the slogans. Trust me. ये slogans हैं. Unless you justify how. You're talking about the digital infrastructure, right? You need to provide the specific points. For example, government can focus on expansion of rural connectivity under Bharat Net project. Can we say that? So this part, under Bharat Net project, right? Similarly, if you're talking about health, we can link it with Ayushman Bharat, right? Similarly, for skill development program under what? Is there any mission? Skill India mission, right? Similarly, education की बात हो रही है, तो vocational education we can talk about, right? So this is how you have to provide the justification, right? So always remember this part. Otherwise, examiner will not give you the marks at all. वो 3 नंबर देके आगे बढ़ जाएगा, because your answer will be very generic, right? And always remember one more thing. Whenever you are brainstorming the question, there are 2 things on which you have to focus on. One is the framework. In fact, 3 things. The structure, framework based on the keywords. And trust me, my friend, when we will be going through the previous year's questions in the brainstorming session, I will show you how to pick up the keyword from each and every topic. And trust me, once you will get the idea, when you know how to break down the keyword, your answer writing journey is going to be very, very smooth. So framework, the keyword, based on the keyword, and the last part is the value addition. So these are the 3 aspects you should be always focusing on whenever you look at the question. अपने आप से question पूछो, is what is the best possible way I can structure? I can divide the statement, I can divide the tail word, I can think about the keyword. Then based on the keyword, think how the framework can be used. Broad aspects. Framework means broad aspects. And these broad aspects can be linked or can be used in any question. The third is value addition. In this question, the value addition can be data, reports, policies, schemes, government ki schemes, right? So I hope this is clear. Now, the next question I'm going to discuss, the conclusion. Now, conclusion can be balanced. HRD is not expenditure, but investment. So this is a keyword you can use, or phrase. Forward-looking conclusion. By transforming HR, human resources, into human capital, India can convert its demographic dividend into democratic dividend, demographic to democratic dividend, right? And the code-based education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, right? But I think the forward-looking conclusion is good because this is an issue-based question. So in such kind of question, you can use the forward-looking question conclusion, right? Or either you can link it with the SDG goals and all. Viksit Bharat also. But now बहुत generic हो गया, सबको पता चल चुका है अब वो. Right? Everyone using now sustainable development goals, Viksit Bharat, Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, ये सारी चीजें. So try to always be innovative in your answer. Now, the last question which I'll be discussing, very important question. Then after that, Shoaib sir will discuss. Starting from inventing the basic structure doctrine, the judiciary has played a highly proactive role in ensuring that India develops into a thriving democracy. In light of this statement, evaluate the role played by judicial activism in achieving the ideals of democracy. Now, I'm sure many of you must be confused as far as the structuring of the answer is concerned, as far as the demand of the question is concerned, right? Because there are two concepts in the question. One is basic structure doctrine and another one is judicial activism, right? So whenever you see these kind of a statement in the question, most of the time, the first statement is nothing but it is just given for the reference. It is not going to be the core demand of the question. And when it is not going to be the core demand of the question, either you can wrap it up in the introduction itself, कि introduction में ही बता दो उसके बारे में, or if you have some time or space, you can give it a very brief description about the concept, right? So this question, as far as the core demand of this question is concerned, it is not about the basic structure doctrine, but it is more about how the judicial activism is shaping the ideals of democracy, right? How it is shaping the ideals of democracy. That is my core demand. Now, as far as the keyword is concerned, question says evaluate. Evaluate is what? It is a critical command word. It is not a descriptive command word, right? So it is a critical command word. If you are confused with the critical and descriptive command words, there is a video on the YouTube. You can go and watch that, where I have discussed most of the most important keywords which UPSC uses in the questions. So now, as far as the evaluation is concerned, we are going to talk about the issues, right? What are the challenges rather? So this is how we are going to think about the structure. So now, what are we going to write in the introduction itself? Now tell me, what is the introduction? Online students, please tell me. Chat disable क्यों? Enable कर दीजिए chat. Yes. What is the idea of introduction in this question? Please tell me. बताओ भाई क्या लिखा है इंट्रोडक्शन में? केशवानंदी तो सबने लिखा होगा. केशवानंद केबीसी केस लिखा है सबने. पीएम भागवती का कोट, टेल मी द कोट. कंटेक्स्ट बता दो.
Preserving the rights of people by actively advocating for people.
Advocating for people rights. Okay, so basically you have highlighted the significance of the judicial activism, right? Yes. So now I'll tell you two things in such kind of question where two concepts or where two concepts is involved in the question. Always remember one thing: introduction should capture entire demand of the question. Introduction should capture entire demand of the question, right? For example, you will find a lot of questions based on the comparison. For example, discuss the discretionary power of US and Indian president. सपोज ये क्वेश्चन आ गया, यूजुअली हम लोग क्या करते हैं, वी जस्ट राइट डाउन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आर्टिकल and the constitution article related to the Indian president only, right? Don't do this. Don't do this. For example, the question which I have asked in the beginning, discuss the impact of climate change on the agriculture sector. In this, there are two keywords, climate change and agriculture sector. So you need to provide the data, or you need to provide the link between both. Just don't talk about the declining productivity of the agriculture sector. You have to provide the link with the climate change also. या खाली climate change के बारे में मत लिखो. You have to make sure your introduction capturing the entire demand of the question. Only then your introduction will become contextual. And this is a very common problem I have seen in many answers, right? So introduction should capture the entire demand of the question. Now, as far as this question is concerned, obviously I'm going to start with the Keshwanandi Bharti case, but at the same time, I will be highlighting the significance of judicial activism. And now recall what I have said. Whenever I'm going to highlight the significance, I will be substantiating it with some data facts. अब इस क्वेश्चन में डेटा फैक्ट्स क्या होगा? सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जजमेंट, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल, judicial activism beginning with the basic structure doctrine in Keshwanandi Bharti case positioned the judiciary as a guardian of the India's democratic ideals against the majoritarian or executive excesses, striking down unconstitutional amendment or reviewing executive actions. In for example, Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan and Menka Gandhi case. यहाँ पे मैं एग्जांपल दे दूंगा, दो आप रीसेंट एग्जांपल भी दे सकते हो कोई भी, but giving the example itself is very important. Some facts as far as the introduction is concerned. Now, in this question, don't think about the content. Tell me the framework, the ideas. Tell me the idea to generate the point. Because I know now there are two core demand in the question, right? One is, in the light of a statement, evaluate. So evaluate may, first we need to highlight the significance of judicial activism, then challenges, right? That is a core demand. So as far as the significance of judicial activism is concerned, is there any framework? Are you able to think? जैसे stakeholder wise, like what? See, why are we discussing the significance? We are discussing the significance in the context of ideals of democracy. So PIL is nothing but it is a cause. It is a cause. Effect क्या हो रहा है इसका? It helps in achieving the ideals of democracy. Now, if you are going to think about this part, it may be a bit difficult. Now, think about the ideals of democracy. Think about the ideals of democracy. Ideals of democracy is what? Protecting your fundamental rights, be it justice, equality, liberty, be it separation of power, be it rule of law, be it executive power of separation of power में आ जाएगा वो खैर. So think about the ideals of democracy, the way we have discussed it before. And then you have to think the various Supreme Court judgment. Otherwise, what you might have done, you might have just listed the Supreme Court judgment in your answer. या तो उसमें आइडियल्स ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी के कंपोनेंट मिसिंग होंगे, और या तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जजमेंट मिसिंग होगी. But to write the effective answer, you have to strike a balance between both, because this is a cause and ideals of democracy is effect. Clear? लिखा है आंसर में? हाँ, इस फ्रेमवर्क में नहीं लिखा, तो कौन सा फ्रेमवर्क यूज किया है? हाँ, तो एग्जाम्पल? हाँ हाँ, ठीक है. नवतेज सिंह जोहर केस, ठीक है, ठीक है, फाइन. सो बेसिकली you are able to highlight the cause and effect relation. अब ideals of democracy, like it have n number of components, right? But at least 10 तो आपको याद होने चाहिए on your fingertips, right? So as far as the introduction is concerned, we have seen. Now ideals of democracy, for example, popular sovereignty, rule of law, fundamental rights, equality, accountability, separation of power, political pluralism, participation and representation, social justice, respect for minority rights, right? So these are the ideals of democracy. As far as the society is concerned, as far as the culture is concerned, as far as the institution is concerned, because society, individual, culture, religion, institutions, right? These are all the stakeholders in the democracy. So think like that. At institutional level, what judiciary has been doing. At individual level, how it is protecting the rights of minorities, rights of individuals or marginalized section. At political level, how judiciary is playing a crucial role. How at religious level, the judiciary is playing an important role, right? So this is how you have to develop the logic to think about any particular question. Don't directly jump on the content. And then I have especially seen, whenever you see the question, you start writing, man, focus on the framework. First, develop this habit to think about the broad framework. As soon as I see the question, I know, okay, this is the keyword, and based on this keyword, I'm going to open my answer, right? So, ideals of democracy. Now, however, there are some concerns. So in concern, we can talk about the overreach, policy making role, right? Then implementation gap, resource constraint, democratic legitimacy. So basically all these are the challenges as far as the judicial or the role of judiciary is concerned, right? You can talk about the pendency of cases. You can even also highlight the issue of judicial accountability, right? Now accountability wala part you can also break down. There is an issue of accountability at appointment level, at power level, at function level, at transferring of cases or management of cases level, right? So there are various ways you can think of. So judicial accountability itself can have like 4 or 5 points which you can use, right? Similarly, as far as judicial biases is concerned, dependence on litigants, socio-economic sensitivity, these are other dimensions you can think of. In judicial activism, resource constraint, overloaded judiciary. So do you think if the judiciary is already overloaded, it will be able to accept more PIL? Or even if it will accept, do you think it will be able to deliver the justice then? So kahin na kahin jo purpose hai judicial activism ka through PIL, it will be defied, right? So that is the thing, right? So after that, now there are scope for the reforms also at judiciary level you can talk about. I have not included that in the slide. But whenever you are talking about the reforms, right, do not only think as far as, or do not only think from the judicial point of view. Do not only think from the judicial point of view. Who all are the stakeholders in this entire cycle? Yes. Yes. So proper guidelines like people awareness की बात भी हम कर सकते हैं. Judicial level पे अगर बात कर रहे हो, you can talk about the transparency, accountability, or appointment, transparency in appointment process, right? All these. Then we can also talk about the fast track courts, digital infrastructure we can talk about, digital management of cases we can talk about, right? So at various level, you have to think. So whenever you are understanding or interpreting the demand of the question, the very important part you need to identify is who all are the stakeholders. इस पूरे issue में stakeholders कौन कौन है? And then you will be able to develop the logic, right? I hope this is clear. Now finally the conclusion, quote or principle from the constitution. For example, as Justice Bhagwati noted, the judiciary must act as the sentinel of the constitution while respecting democratic governance, or either balanced or moderate. Conclusion, judicial activism has strengthened India's democracy but must operate within constitutional limit to avoid overreach, right? So this is the kind of conclusion you can prepare. Right now, Shoaib sir will take next two questions, and you can ask the question whatever you will have. Right, Shoaib sir is going to be the part of the session, and if you will have any one-to-one doubts, you can definitely get in touch if you are enrolled into this program. Right, as far as the batch date is concerned, I have got a request that the batch is actually we were planning to launch it from 13th of October, but now we have postponed it. Now the batch will be started from 27th of October, because we all know that the festival season is there. So many students, they are not comfortable. They don't want to miss any single test. So that is the reason they have requested to postpone the dates. Right. So now the batch will be starting from the 27th of October, the first batch. Right. So because tomorrow also we have UPPCS exam. So most of the students, they are occupied in that. They did not get the time to prepare for the first test itself, which was scheduled for on 13th of October. So be prepared for 27th of October, right? Thank you. Right, sir.
Hello. Hello, hello. Is there any doubt regarding first three questions? In general, answer writing, any doubt? Any doubt? Yeah. Yeah. Like where? This is the question, right? Where? If there is no context building about evolution of judiciary, then there is no point of, I think, adding a non-core demand, even if it is a non-core demand, if there is no context there. If the context was there, that if the context was explaining this thing, that judiciary has evolved into something like this, that they are playing a proactive role, then you can add about evolution. Then it becomes a non-core demand.
Even if you're adding a non-core demand, there should be something there related in the question. But it is not about evolution. Right.
From past how judicial activism is the cause for emergence of the system from access for the party.
You can use it in the introduction itself or linking statement. Otherwise, if you're adding a proper non-core demand, I think it should be there in the question. It should be directly there in the question. If it is there, that's fine. So can you add the PPT? Other than that, I think if you have seen the first three questions, the idea is to focus on the question, breaking it down, thinking about the demand, and actually answering the question, not the topic. Usually what I've seen is that in most of the questions, if the question is about judicial activism, you'll start with the definition. But the question is not just about explanation of judicial activism, but it is about the whole perspective. For example, this, how it is playing the role. Okay, so you have to talk about the role rather than just about the introduction. Even if you're defining it, just use a connecting line to link it to the role. That way the introduction is about the question. The introduction is not of the topic. So that is one of the things. Second, I would say that just think about the structure when you're trying to frame the answer. That what are the sub dimensions, how you can frame it, what amount of paragraph or what amount of space or time you're going to give it in a particular question. And the core demand should be given most of the space, because that's why the question is asked. For example, there was a question on suggesting measures. So even if you're starting at half a page, you should give another page on some measures. Measures should be the main demand, because that is the question. Other is the context building. So whenever you're answering that, just make sure. I know that sometimes the context is that much big that you have to elaborate everything, and it becomes very difficult to do it in a very short period of time or short space of time, or short space, I would say. So you should do it as a paragraph, that, okay, this is the context, and that's how I'm going to link it, and now the measures will come. For example, there was a question, development has been missing the HRD from development process. So you can say development has been happening, like economic growth, this, but we are lacking in HRD. And then sir told what we are lacking in, and then you can just give the references and then come to the measures. So it becomes easier for you to hit the main demand, give it more space, more time. So it will be easier for the examiner just to see it. And the main demand should be very clear. It should be highlighted, nicely written, and there should be some underlining also. So it will become very easier for the examiner to see it. You just have to make the examiner's jobs very easy. That's the whole part of it. That for them, it is just a task. They have to do it very quickly. So if you make that visible, it becomes easier for them. So I'll start with the 2-question discussion, which I have. So this is the first question, that the Constitution of India is a living instrument with capabilities of enormous dynamism. It is a constitution made for a progressive society. You have to illustrate that with reference to the expanding horizons of right to life and personal liberty. Can you give me any introduction to this, or think about what the question is trying to say? Anybody? Please, people at the back, please participate in the discussion. If you can think of anything here. Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about the recent judgment of Kotta's on the case and link it with the dynamic nature, because it has addressed a contemporary issue.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk about the linking? Because that is how you're going to actually connect to this question. Can you talk about it? Yeah.
The constitution made for a progressive society.
Right.
Right, like that the recent addition or the recent recognition of right to privacy under Article 51 accepts addresses contemporary demand, making the constitution relevant for the progressive.
Right, absolutely. That's like hitting the core demand of the question, and also linking it with a contemporary issue or contemporary judgments which are happening. This is how you're going to address such questions. And general thing, I think everybody knows it, that you have to start with either description of the statement. If it becomes very difficult for somebody to break down the question or link it to current articles or judgments, just give the description. Because you don't want to write something which is not the actual demand of the question. So even if it is basic, even if it is very simple, just give the description. That you, if you can't find a definition, just describe, okay, you know, this is what is happening. So we'll talk. Let's general introduction. Constitution is a living document because it has been evolving and we have seen it in many judgments. That's it. If you can't find it, obviously that's basic. Since you are trying to improve your score, you are trying to score more, you will write specific points. So here I've written very simple introduction. The Indian Constitution is also often described as living document because it is not rigid, static, general description. But then I have linked it to the statement that it has evolved over judicial interpretations, amendments. See, when you're talking about Article 21, there is no amendment in it. So you can't talk about specifically when you're illustrating about Article 21 that there is amendment, because there is no amendment. But when you're talking about other, it has been saying special reference. So you have to talk about other things also, which through which the Constitution has been a living document. It has evolved. So there you'll talk about amendments also. But in Article 21, you won't be. So you understand the point that you have to explain, illustrate the statement that it has been a living document, one through life and liberty, which is Article 21, the various judgments, and then you will talk about other things, because it is not saying just focusing on that, illustrate using this, it is saying special reference. So you have to give special reference to that Article 21, life and liberty, and then you will talk about other things also, right? This is going to be the structure of the overall question. So again, we'll come down to the body. One request I would have is that just try to, when, like I broke down this statement, one is that related to Article 21 and one is the other parts. So do it organically. If you're not able to break down the question in certain cases where if you break it down, it becomes very difficult to actually answer the question. I'll give you an example. If I'm saying that, let's say there is one question about food security, that cropping pattern is actually linked to food security. So you can't talk about food security separately and cropping pattern separately. First, you'll talk about cropping pattern. India, we have having cropping pattern like this, and that is actually having food security problems. You have to link everything there only. And in that case, even if the subheading is of 2 lines, I would say make it. Because instead of writing a wrong answer, you will be writing a bulky answer or the points will be less. That's fine. I was just giving you elaboration because this is where people make mistake usually. So this is fairly easy question. I think illustration, I won't go much into detail. The illustration of Article 21 was, and initially it was just about arbitrary action of the state, about life and liberty, and then we had judicial expansion. Right to privacy is one example. Then right to livelihood, another example. Right to clean environment. Just think about everything which is coming under Article 21, and if you can supplement with the judicial judgments, then it will be better. That's it. Okay. And then we will talk about other illustration for a living document. As I said that it was special reference, so you have to talk about Article 21 and then move it to other parts. So first we'll start with judicial intervention itself, because it gives the continuity, because in the Article 21 we have talked about judicial interventions. One thing I would say, don't write this much. Okay. I have written it because you have to see what are the points, what are the dimensions you can think about, that you can see from different angles, like digital speech and protest, Article 19, then something else, then women's right. But you don't have to write this much. See, think about the space when you're attempting a question. You have 2 pages. That's a 10-marker question. I have, in the question, it has been written that there is a special reference. So first page itself should be special reference. Okay, you have filled that page. Now come to the second page. Second page, you'll write about other aspects or other illustrations, and you can't give this much point, because if you give this much point, your page is finished. So just write 2-3 points and move ahead. That's it. I have written points to think about, and think from, I think it is fairly easy question, so I'm not giving the dimension what to think about. Very easy question. Article 21, everybody knows the sub dimensions. Then now the amendments, because Constitution is a living document. In 21 there is no amendment, so we can only talk about judicial judgments. But in other aspects we can also talk about amendments. The government itself, parliament itself, has been making it a living document because society needs some changes, and these are the changes which was brought out to adjust to the need of the progressive society. And just whenever you are doing explaining these parts, like for example, role of progress, need of a progressive society, something like should be written just to interlink it. After a couple of points, you can write it. If you have space, you write it there also. Always try to link it to the demand of the question so that the examiner always feels, I have asked this question, I have asked about this, and the answer is being related to that topic only. It's not about something else. Yes, correlation has to be maintained, and try to make sure that it has been maintained in every 2-3 points. That word should be there, or it should be there in the heading itself. Like for example, you have written amendment reflecting social change and progress as need of a progressive society. That would be better. If you can't write in the statements, then write in the subheading. So it becomes very easy for the examiner to decipher it. Conclusion, I would say, one thing I would say about talk about conclusion and introduction is that you have to write both of them as per the question, not for the topic. So a lot of people saying that you have to prepare the introduction and conclusion, that is not valid. What you can prepare is a topic. Let's say it's about preamble or constitution morality. So what you can do is you can think about the definition, significance. But what the question is asking, you have to link the definition to that. If I'm saying the constitutional morality is the bedrock of Indian democracy, so you will talk about constitutional morality definition, and then you will say this definition shows that it is the bedrock. Right? Simple. Don't have to be very perfect, but you have to be precise in hitting the question. That is more important. So always think about writing an introduction and conclusion. This conclusion also very simple, nothing written. B.R. Ambedkar also you can remove if you want. Let's make it very basic, very simple. Remove B.R. Ambedkar. Now read it. Constitution is not an end, but means for social transformation, which ensures that it remains relevant, inclusive, and future ready for a progressive society. Because the question was about need of a progressive society. So this should be there. This should be there. These words are more important than anything else. So if you can write, then value addition comes. Value addition will think about value addition only after you have thought about a particular conclusion, that this particular conclusion would be fit. You can add SDG, anything, judgments, articles, whatever you want to, but that will only come when you have hit the demand of the question. Okay, so always think about demand, conclusion, introduction, both. Simple introduction, constitution is not an end, but means, and it will remain relevant, inclusive, and future ready for a progressive society if we keep amending it, changing it through judicial interventions and amendments. I've made it short, that's why I've not added amendments and judicial intervention. Otherwise, you can add that also. Any doubt in this question? People at the back, any doubt in the question? Or you're all busy just writing? Have you listened to what I've said? Any doubt? Okay. Fine. Understood. Then the next question: the need for cooperation among various service sectors has been an inherent component of the development discourses. Right? Can you understand this line? Break down the question. The need for a cooperation among various service sectors has been an inherent component of the development discourse. Can you tell me what does that mean?
So basically, for a developed society or for a developed economy of India, we see that cooperation among the three main sectors of the society for various reasons, like for
which sectors?
the primary, secondary, and tertiary.
Service sectors are primary, tertiary, second, third. Okay. Yeah, that's the idea. The idea is right. But service sectors are like health, education, these service sectors. The services which are, since it is a governance question, so it is about the services that we are actually giving to the people. Okay. So think about that. So we need cooperation in that. That is the context. There is a need for cooperation among various service sectors to because it is an inherent component of development discourse. So whenever we are thinking about development discourse, then we need the collaboration or cooperation between these service sectors. For example, between health and education, between digitalization and education, nutrition and education, health and nutrition, something like that. So you have to think about the linkage, right? This is the need. This is how you have to think. But now it is not we have not come to the question itself. This is just the context. Then the partnership bridges the gap among the various sectors. General statement that there are various sectors. If we create a partnership between them, the gap will be bridged. Because if let's say we are talking about nutrition and education, if we bring them together, for example, midday meal, then we'll be able to target them better, or the gap will be much more reduced. That's what we just talking. This is the context. Okay. Now what you have to do is, it also sets a motion a culture of collaboration and team spirit. Again, general thing, brings collaboration, team spirit. In light of these statements, these are the overall statements, the context we have read, we have to examine India's development process in light of these things. So what is the question here? The question is not this. The question is this only. Examine India's development process. Now you have to examine this development process through these statements. So when you are examining India's development, you have to think about cooperation between various service sectors. You have to talk about how it is going to bring team spirit and collaboration. That's it. Okay. So always think about exams. So introduction. What is the introduction here? Anyone? Think about the introduction. Don't look at here. Just think from your perspective. And think about what I said about the major question, that the question is about India's development. So your introduction should be India's development. You can highlight the reference points, but always think about India's development. That is the main question. So think about it. Okay, I'll just start with it. That India's development process has evolved from a centralized top-down model to a participatory collaborative approach. I have just highlighted how India's model has evolved. Earlier it was centralized top-down, and now it is collaborative, because the context was about collaboration. So I have talked about India's development model, but about collaboration. So that's how I have linked to the question. This is general, very general. I have not written any value addition, any report, Niti Aayog's report, anything to make it simple, to make you understand that answer writing is about writing the answer of the question, not about value addition. Value addition, you can do it later. If the same statement is given in Niti Aayog, that also you can write. If some other relevant statement is also given in some other report, that also you can use. But think about just about this statement, that how you can write the introduction according to the question. That's it. Simple introduction. Now you have to link it to the demand. Since there is so much context building coming to this question, you have to link it to that. So giving the complexity of development challenges, for example, poverty, inequality, health, education, climate change, these are the various services which are required. Okay. Cooperation among service sector is required through participation. I have written in bracket, but you can also write through participation of government, private sector, civil society, and community. So different collaboration can be needed. But the main question is about this collaboration, that poverty and inequality can be collaborated, education and health can be collaborated, nutrition and health can be collaborated. This collaboration is the main, but in that collaboration, there is participation of these, right? Now I've talked about the first part of this collaboration. Here heading is not made, but you can make this heading, that collaboration through various service sectors in India's development model. Always write India's development. You can't write collaboration between multiple sectors and leave it, because that's not the question. That is the context. You have to you have to write this India's development process, and then you have to write collaboration through various service sectors. Okay, so subheading should be like this. If you write just, then you are explaining the context. You have not come to the demand of the question. Demand is India's development process. So India's development process first write, and then 2 dots, and then you write this, that there is need of collaboration. Now this is very general points, that we have talked about governance collaboration. We have talked about the infrastructure development collaboration. The multiple ministries are, for example, in Gati Shakti, there are multiple ministries. There are 16 ministries. So this shows the collaboration again. Health sector collaboration with insurance. Okay, health sector, there are some health insurance is also given, for example, PMJ and other schemes. Then you can talk about Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission. Here the collaboration between digital service and health service. So service sector collaboration. See, understand the demand, service sector collaboration. What are the different services? There is need to be a collaboration. Keep it very simple. Various services, collaboration. Think like that. Think of the example. That's it. Your job is done. Keep it simple. Keep it very simple. Think about services, collaboration. That's it. But At the same time, this is context. We are talking about India's development process. So development process should be there. And you're giving these examples. Why I have not suggested any futuristic example? Because we are not talking about future. We're not talking about anything. The question is about India's development process. So this is all India's development process right now, which is going on. That's why the examples are contemporary. There is no futuristic example. There is no suggestion here. That's why, because we are discussing it. There is nothing like suggestions and all that. So focus on demand again, coming back. Some other examples: Swachh Bharat Mission, here collaboration of sanitation, public health, education, behavioral change, all these services giving in 1 point. Another example of skill development, education, industry training, everything at 1 point, right? Understood? All services at 1 point. Other example, Digital India Initiative, IT, telecom, banking, e-governance, everything at 1 point. Understood? This is the basic idea. Now, since we have to examine the cooperation, we have to examine the development process. So there should be limitations in India's development process with regard to cooperation or collaboration. So we have to highlight those limits. Don't highlight the limits of cooperation between individuals. We have to highlight the limitations between in India's development model. So these are the limitations. Simple. Okay, you can write whatever point you write. And limitations are very simple. Keep it simple. Bureaucratic silos. Why there is no cooperation? Because of the ministry, there is bureaucratic silos. Ministry department often work independently. There is no collaboration. We have shown that there is collaboration, but there are limitations to that collaboration, and that is not working on certain sectors. I have not written specific other examples. You can also mention that that is not working on everything. And sometimes the collaboration is not that smooth. Sometimes inherent ministries also oppose. This is self-thinking about it. Just imagine two ministries are collaborating, two services are collaborating. What is the issue? Sometimes one services will be focused more, second will be less. Sometimes one ministry will say that this will be controlled by me. Some will say that it will be controlled by me. So think about this. I have written the points, but you can also think generally. Okay, that is why understanding the demand is very important. Once you understand that, there is enough, you have read enough, you have thought about everything enough, you have read newspapers, you know how the system works. So if you understood it, yeah, go ahead. I won't suggest that. You can put an example, but only after explanation. Because bureaucratic silos is not explaining anything. You have to show that. At least write 2-3 words. At least write it. At least write. Because this is fairly simple. This is the most simple part of a question you will be able to write. That limitation, directly write it. Nothing is there. But there will be some questions where limitation itself has a lot of collaboration, or you have to link it with other things. So if you keep this habit of leaving everything short, it won't be suffice. In my understanding, there should be some ministries and department bureaucratic silos is there. How actually it is functioning, how it is not helping in the collaboration. So you write ministry department often work independently, lacking horizontal coordination. Or you can directly lacking horizontal coordination between department. Make it more shorter. See, what I'm trying to say is that explanation should be there. If you leave the explanation, you won't be addressing the demand. But if you keep writing it, try to make it shorter, more shorter. So over a period of time, you'll develop this habit of keeping the explanation very short, so that examples can be adjusted. Okay, I have written multiple examples, but just you can actually example should be written without explanation. That can be done. But your point should be, if I'm making, look, the argument is that when we write limitations, we give an argument. Okay, this is the limitation. And then we substantiate the argument. If the argument itself is not complete, then how can, even if you write so much substantiation, the argument cannot be completed by just substantiation. Data and example is the backing of an argument. It cannot substitute the argument itself. So that's why argument has to be explained a bit. Write 4 or 5 words, it won't take that much time. Okay, so bureaucratic silos, overlapping jurisdictions between different center states, and then lack of data integration and sharing. These general points, I think this is content you will find anywhere. My point is my job is to explain how to write it. Okay, resource constraint and prioritization, because some will prioritize something else, some will other things. Simple. You can write it by yourself also. Political and federal frictions, political will. Some states are working, some are not working. Okay, Then this also you can mention, last part, that civil society and private participation is less, because obviously these things can also help. Okay, conclusion. Again, simple conclusion. It is already a very complex question. It is a question where you won't be able to fit that much data, that much content. This is diverse, difficult question, because understanding the demand itself become very good. So try to make it simple. I have just summarized it. Just read it. It is just the summary. It is nothing else. Why? To make your job, because if you can't do this much, then you can't write very good answer. You can't add any report or anything, because you have to understand this. You can either write report, start by writing report, and then you'll miss the demand. This is nothing but the questions idea. Read: partnership between state, center, private, civil society, etc. required to bring the gap between collaboration. It is a way forward itself. See, I have used this much line, partnership to collaboration, as a way forward between multiple service sectors. This is again coming to the question itself. Like health, education, digital service, to achieve the goal of people-centric governance. This is my goal. This is my question, multiple service sectors, and this is my way forward. That I have talked about multiple collaboration. This is the way forward. This is the question, and this is my ambition, the aim that I want to achieve. Here you can remove this people-centric government. You can talk about Viksit Bharat, any government motto, anything, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, anything you can write, but make it simple. Make it simple and have all three things in this answer. A way forward, because I've not written separately. I've focused on the demand itself, and question, and then goal of the government. That's it. Any other doubt that people have? Online students, any idea? Yeah, Viksit Bharat 2047, right? Nicely said. Anything else you can add? So sir will take it from here and he will talk about the program itself.
Yeah, so just few announcement I want to make here. Since we have time till 27th of October. If you really want to discuss your answers, your notes, you can book the session, one-to-one session with us. And along with the Shoaib sir, we are going to have the team of other rankers. Rahul Shekhar sir will be there, rank 242. Then Sachi Sharma ma'am will be there, rank 550. So a lot of rankers are going to be the part of this program. So if you have any doubt, if you want to book a session, then, or if you have any doubts related to the notes making or answer writing, definitely you can book a online session. And if you're in Delhi, you can visit Vajiram building. But my friend, before we leave, you need to understand one thing. I would request all of you to go through the previous year's questions, especially last year ka previous year's question dekh lena, and try to identify few things. The very first part is, how many questions do you think you can attempt by referring the notes itself? How many questions? Three things I would say. Three things you need to identify, and this part is very important to understand, right? For example, three things are, as far as the previous year's questions are concerned, pick up GS paper 2 or GS paper 3. Okay, pick up either GS paper 2 or GS paper 3, right? What do you need to do? Just try to or just make a table. Find out how many questions you can solve or you can attempt just by referring the notes. Second point, how many questions you can refer or you can solve using the after going through the previous year's questions, and how many questions you have to attempt logically. And you will find most of the questions, almost 70-80% of the question, you can address through previous year's questions and logic. Notes are going to help you just as a value addition into this. And some direct question. You will find it could be current affair based question, it could be conceptual question, it could be anything. जैसे constitutional morality के ऊपर last year UPSC ने question पूछा. So I can understand you must be having the notes on the constitutional morality. So you can attempt those questions. But apart from that question, and even the constitutional morality the UPSC has asked. right? So focus should be previous year's question, and you need to brainstorm. Brainstorming, trust me, my friend. Last year, I was conducting the brainstorming session for Rankers batch for few sessions I have conducted, and many students I have like they have given the positive feedback. They were able to learn a lot of things, because content, after some time you will feel content have limitations. Definitely you will feel content have limitations, and that limitations you can overcome just by thinking logically. And logically thinking is nothing but it's a brainstorming. So in this program, we have decided that we will be doing the brainstorming sessions as well for the previous year's questions, especially on Saturday, Sundays. And we will try to cover each and every PYQ which UPSC has asked in last 10, 15, maybe 20 years for some topics. And in that, we will be discussing the structuring, the framework, and the value addition, the way we have discussed it based on the keyword and all, right? So I hope this was clear. Any doubt? Payal, yes, this is camp for 2026. I'm talking about. This is a batch 1. Any other doubt anyone have? Online students, please ask me. Anything? I'm just checking the YouTube if anyone have any doubt, because I cannot see the screen on. Siddhant, I have told you this program is not starting from 13th, but it is going to be started from 27th of October because of Diwali and UPPCS. Kondri, yes, go to the brochure. There will be a 5 questions on a daily basis. There are 34 mini length tests in which 5 questions will be given on a daily basis. So you can check the brochure. Like there are 3 days we have allocated for the polity, 3-4 days for geography, like that. So 15-20 questions we will be practicing for every subject. And what is more important to understand, let me ask you the very first question. How many topics do you think is probable topics in each and every subject? जहां से हर साल आप क्वेश्चन देखोगे, I think not more than 12 to 13 topics are there in entire polity, right? Not more than 13 topics which are relevant or which are important at all. But what are those 13 topics? That is very important to categorize. वो 13 topics हैं क्या? उनके ऊपर फ्रेमवर्क कैसे यूज करना है, ये सारी चीजें हम लोग को देखनी पड़ेंगी, राइट? एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू डू इन द PYQ brainstorming session. Nivedita, you can fill the form. If you are not a part of this program, you can fill the form and then we will get in touch with you in that case. And if you are in Delhi, you can directly walk in, no issues, near Karol Bagh, gate number 5. Khushi, current affair, as far as the current affair is concerned, you don't have to focus on current affair in silos. Always try to link it with the static subject. I'm going to have a separate session for that. Don't worry. How to use a current affair. Okay. Srishti, it is in the description box. You can find the form. Right. So I'll wrap up the session here. Thank you so much for joining this, and we'll see you in the next class. Thank you.